Welcome to the Explainer. Okay, today our main goal is to finally demystify those sleek black bordered cards just sitting there patiently in your extra deck. We are of course talking about Xyz Monsters. Now, if you've ever felt a little intimidated by bringing these absolute powerhouse cards into play, hey, don't worry about it. It's like a giant puzzle, but by the end of this guide, you're going to be summoning them like an absolute pro.
So, here is our game plan. We'll start by properly meeting the Xyz Monster. Then, we'll walk through the exact Xyz Summoning process, figure out how Xyz Materials actually work, and wrap up with those all-important graveyard rules and reborns. Alright, Section 1. Meet the Xyz Monster, identifying the black-bordered cards.
So to actually use these cards, you first have to know how to spot them in the wild, right? Xyz Monsters have this really distinct pitch black background. It instantly sets them apart from the rest of your deck. But the real game changer is actually at the top of the card. You know how traditional monsters have their level stars running along the right side? Well, Xyz Monsters don't have levels at all. Nope. Instead, they have a rank, and those stars are aligned on the left side. It's a subtle visual shift, sure, but absolutely crucial for how they operate.
Now, you might be wondering, how do we actually get them on the board? Well, if you look down in the description box, right below the monster type, you'll find what is basically a recipe. And this recipe tells you exactly what materials you need to cook up this summon. Materials are just the specific number and type of face-up monsters that you must already have in play on your field. The golden rule here? Precision. You have to match this recipe exactly. There are absolutely no substitutions allowed.
Moving on to Section 2, the Xyz Summoning process, executing the summon. Let's get these things onto the mat.
Okay, assuming you've got your matching materials sitting face up on the field, here is the tactile, step-by-step physical process. During either of your main phases, you literally just start by declaring out loud that you are Xyz Summoning. Own it! Then, you physically stack your chosen Xyz material cards face up right on top of each other. Finally, take that black-bordered Xyz monster from your extra deck and place it squarely on top of that stack. Boom! You can put this whole stack in either the main monster zone or the extra monster zone, in face-up attack or face-up defense position. I gotta say, it is incredibly satisfying to build that stack and just drop a boss monster onto the field.
And honestly, this next part brilliantly illustrates the sheer power of the mechanic. There is literally no limit to the number of Xyz monsters you can summon in a single turn. Seriously, no limit. As long as you have the right materials in play to match those specific recipes, you can just keep dropping these heavy hitters onto the board, back to back to back.
Which brings us to Section 3, Understanding Xyz Materials, the physics of attached cards.
Now, here's where things get kind of weird, but in a really interesting way. How does the game actually treat those cards you just stacked underneath your shiny new monster? Even though you can physically see them tucked right under there, the official rules state they are not considered to be on the field. And, follow me here, because they aren't technically on the field, they aren't considered to have left the field either. This is massive. It means any card effects that require a monster to leave the field simply will not trigger. When your Xyz Monsters effect tells you to detach a material to activate some awesome power, you just slide one of those stack cards out from the bottom and drop it straight into the graveyard. And that leads us to Section 4, Graveyard Rules and Reborns, the end of the life cycle.
Because let's face it, your opponent isn't just going to sit there twiddling their thumbs while your giant monster dominates the board, right? They're going to fight back, so it's absolutely vital to know exactly what to do when things inevitably go sideways. So what happens when your Xyz monster is destroyed?
The answer? It's a total package deal. Both the Xyz monster itself and the whole shebang, meaning all the materials still attached underneath it, are sent straight to the graveyard. But hey, there's a silver lining here. Any materials sent to the graveyard this way, or honestly, even when they're detached manually to pay costs, they can still trigger their own individual graveyard effects, as long as their specific card conditions are correctly met.
Understanding that really helps us figure out some of the weirder edge cases. For instance, what if an opponent's card effect tries to bounce your Xyz monster back to your hand or your deck? Well, it actually goes face down into your extra deck instead. And what if you want to bring an Xyz monster back from the grave using a classic spell like Monster Reborn? You totally can do that, but with one major catch. It is special summoned naked. That means it comes back without any of its attached materials, so you won't have that fuel to use its effects.
Actually, hold on. There's a massive, absolutely strict restriction on that revival trick we just talked about. We really need to emphasize this rule straight from our sources. Quote, If an Xyz Monster card is sent to your graveyard without it first being properly summoned, then it cannot be special summoned from the graveyard. End quote. Basically, this rule exists to stop players from illegally cheating out massive monsters by just dumping them directly from the extra deck to the graveyard and then reviving them. No way! You have to put the work in and follow the recipe first.
And that brings us to the end of the explainer. You know, the mechanics of this game can sometimes feel a bit like a maze, but when you break them down step by step and really look at the visuals, it all just kind of clicks into place. So, I'll leave you with this final thought. Next time you look at that black extra deck card, will you see a complicated rulebook or a simple recipe waiting to be stacked? Gather your materials, execute the steps, and unleash the power of the Xyz Summon. Thanks for hanging out with us, and happy dueling!